No, it wasn't Miller. But it wasn't Miller. Gary got, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, and it'll be on our page. You might want to slide over. Not Bob. Does everyone have one of these? I want to welcome everybody to the Women's Republican Club of New Orleans. So we're starting early. I'm going to have to ask everyone to introduce or to begin our meeting. We're going to begin with we'll call the meeting to order, and our opening prayer is led by Mary Ann Landry. Would you come and lead us in prayer and the pledge?
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here and good to see all your wonderful faces. And I hope I got to say hi to everybody. But, it's such a pleasure to be here, to be amongst patriotic, God-fearing people. I consider it an honor. We can talk to our Heavenly Father and invoke His power and His Holy Spirit to be amongst us today. So with that, I will say my prayer. Sorry. Also, I'd like to lift my friend Kathy Gutierrez. She lost her husband yesterday. She normally is here, but I'd like for all of us to remember her and pray for her today and for God just giving her His peace. So, dear Heavenly Father, I thank you right now for this wonderful gathering of your children here. I thank you for your Holy Spirit just being outpoured on all of us. I thank you for our hearts of love and compassion for our country, and that you're at the helm, God, leading us all. I want to lift to you the freedom that we have to meet together and to discuss important issues that will affect us for years to come. I lift to you our wonderful President Trump and his wife Melania, Jaden Vance and his wife Usha. I thank you for the whole cabinet. God, I thank you for guarding their hearts and them not being misguided, but leading us in the right direction for full transparency. I thank you for protecting us from these so-called vaccines. I thank you for protecting us from these, all the deception that's going on in voting, that there's integrity. I thank you for the geoengineering in our state to be banned, just like Florida just did and a few other states. I thank you that we jump on board with that too, to protect our air and our crops and our animals and our vegetation and our lungs. God, I thank you for all this poisoning of the people to just stop, getting all the junk out of our foods and our drink. Thank you for the Maha and the Mega movement. I thank you for your love for us and for us to remember to keep you first and to keep our first love, which is you and your word, first and foremost in our lives and making it a priority. As long as we stand with you, you take care of our country and heal it. So I lift this to you and I thank you in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. I'm going to do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mary, thank you. I love when people pray from their heart. So today we have a special guest, Louisiana Treasurer John Fleming, candidate for Senate. He's not in the room. You can take a call. Okay, then we're going to move on to Susie Labry. She can give us she's our legislative liaison, Susie Labry. She will give us an update on what is going on with the committee, the House and the Senate. Just a few things that have happened. Give us an update. We appreciate Susie Labry, and she is doing the work of the Lord, being a lobbyist for the families. She works for us. And so we have to pray for her because nobody's paying her to do what she does. We have to pray for provision for her. That the Lord will provide her rent, her gas, her food, everything she needs, that God will provide it for her because she's not on someone's payroll. She's working for the people, for us. All right, Susie. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
If you want to break out and look at my Facebook page or
Susie here.
Louisiana Sunshine over here, while I'm getting up. Okay. I have a fresh call to action that I just released last night. So if you want to pull it up, Facebook, Susie Labry or Louisiana Sunshine or your Telegram. The first bills I want to talk about should be on your program. This is sent to Mike Fazy. And he numbered Senate Bill 2, Senate Bill 19, Senate Bill 46, Senate Bill 57 over the years. I want to announce that we passed these bills of committee. On the site it says considered. No, it passed the committee by 6-3 to remove fluoride out of the water. Number 2, to allow pharmacies dispense ivermectin. Yay. Another bill, 46 passed. I think that's the one with the food, remove poisons from the food, and no weather manipulation, something like that. These bills are on the way to the Senate. In the call to action, we have the Senate. Just look at the call to action. They changed minute by minute now, regardless of whether it's a holiday. I want to make a big announcement. We killed House Bill 200 by Representative McMakin, the Stack and Pack, the Republican Parish Executive Committee of East Baton Rouge, and we were afraid it's going to bleed the other committees and the Democrats. We killed that bill by one vote, and the tie was 7-7 of the House of Governmental Affairs Committee. No more House Bill 200, no more stacking and pack. That I want to announce. The call to action, we have House committees, House Bill 575 by Representative Ventrella for liability and unlawful termination of the pregnancy. That's House and Civil Laws and Procedures of Monday morning, 9:30. House Bill 125, Representative Horton, for protection, storage, and access to genomic information. That's going to be in Commerce. I don't know why that's in Commerce. Anyway, that's Monday morning. Monday morning, we're going to have. This is a biggie. Pay attention. House Bill 519 by Representative Glorioso, that North Shore there. It's probably, wants to pass the Hoover bill. It's a crime to hold a cell phone when you're driving. We're going to fight that. 9:30, transportation in the first room to the left. That's room 3. So that's going to be a biggie. John, Connie, Martha, Eddie Tarpley's been working on it, and Brown. We're going to be there. We're going to be there at 8 o'clock at the cafe to get our red cards ready for that. I'm for House Bill 554 by Representative McMakin, the one that just supported, but he has a good bill here. Notice the voting restriction, a restricted code applicable U.S. citizens and aliens lawfully present in the United States who hasn't attained citizenship. That's going to be before transportation. It's something to do with the driver's license problem. House Bill 73 by Representative Emerson. That's a heavy bill. I'm looking at all the Julie's bills because what we're going to do is some good things in Amendment number 2, and that's we're going to break down one at a time according to Kathy Edmondson. One issue at a time, so they're breaking it down and passing the forms of legislative bills, which is nice, so we can pass the things we like for the senior citizens and for the teachers and the fires and the police and retirement to retirees. So we were looking at her and all. We have a lot of inventory tax issues with the locals and all. All that's going to be in the form of bills rather than riding on the omnibus. So we'll look at it. Take Julie Emerson's bill. We'll look at that. House Bill 366 Modesto authorizes parish exempt inventory. That's one of I'm for that. That's coming to civil law and procedure. 491 by Representative Owen. Tax credits for cost development. Carbon capture day, anti-carbon capture day at the Capitol. Carbon capture day at the Capitol Tuesday. Over in the room room 4, the natural resource, and I think they're going to remove the room. No, 6, house room 6. That's going to be Tuesday. All these carbon capture bills, but I'm pushing all these bills that are against carbon capture. We're trying to let the locals have more control, and Representative Owens and a lot of other Danny McCormick and all of them. 263 by Representative Dave Sunshine in the governor's office of agent. And then you have Senate committees of this, that Senate enhancements for local authority in the carbon capture, that Senate natural resources. Full House 576, Representative Carter, for repeal relative competitive and non-competitive markets generally to ban excessive, inadequate, and unfair discriminatory insurance rates. That's going to be house insurance. We have a long one for funding. House Bill 652, Representative Kearney, they had collected we need to know sunshine on our local food versus foreign food. House Bill 379, Representative Wright, arbitration instead of litigation and property insurance. I like that one. That's going to be house insurance. And then the full Senate's going to go in at 1 o'clock. Senate Bill 46 by Mike Fazey, Senator Fazey, made intentional release of its version of chemical to the environment. Rick's doing that. The song. Please don't take my sunshine away. That's literally what's trying to happen in Britain. We don't want that to happen here. 3:30 Monday, you can start calling your senators to pass that bill by Mike Pheasant, Senator 46. Senate 57, constitutional amendment to remove income limitations on oaths for that homestead exemptions. That's going to be in the Senate. And that's it. We have Monday, we're going to be in the cafe at 8 a.m. doing break cards against cell phone bill. And then we're going to do green cards. The rest of these bills are mentioned. We got 9:30 is House Commerce, 9:30 a.m. House Civil Law Procedures. The biggie, 9:30 House for Transportation. We want to stack that room, stack and pack that room, not the bed. And then House goes in at 1 o'clock. Senate goes in at 3:30. Any questions before I hang up? Connie?
Senator Fessy seems to be really going to town with a bunch of good bills.
Yes,
but he hasn't always done that, has he? Has he
yes, he's been trying, but as crises go up, and you got to consider where it's from. He's like one of the foundations of the United States of America.
He's sitting on the Gulf of America, that whole southern part of the state from down there at home area and all that. Mike Facing to me reminds me of Representative Kathy Edmondson and Representative Beryl Lamb. Facing is my star senator now.
Wow.
And also,
Big compliment.
yeah. And I love John. I love Senator Beacons, but I wanted to stay state senator. I don't want to split. I don't want to split the vote. We need to keep him down as senator. We're running out of senators. We need to keep that one vote makes a difference. And we do John on that, but I love the man, but he needs to stay in the state senate as far as I'm concerned, because he's so good in the senate. And Louisiana, if we're going to come and have states' rights, it's going to get stronger where the governor and the legislature are going to be just as strong as Congress. Because we want to shift, get the Washington out of here and power here. Enjoy that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Susie. Labry.
Thank you for
Blessing to all of us. I want to do a quick recap on protecting the grid. If you all remember that we had two engineers here, Tia Druck, Rudy, and Charles Smith, and we had Wayne LeGrand on Zooming in. Remember that? So we have a team that's been working on protecting the grid. We wrote a bill with the team because we thought that we could get someone to author it. We actually had Valerie agree to pray about it and possibly author it. And she said she was, they only are allowed 5 bills in this full session, right? So she had 18 bills to consider with. I thought protecting the grid should be the first one, right? Don't protect the grid. What else matters? So we pushed to have the bill authored instead of putting up a resolution. And we learned along the way that Louisiana does things differently. That surprised us. Yeah, so our bill, they don't allow bills to go to the Senate for the grid. They actually have a committee of 5, which through the Public Service Commission. And that's where they decide on what's going on with the grid. And in 2001, the committee of 5, 3 voted against it. They voted basically green, and 2 voted for it. And I think Eric Cometa was one of the 2 that voted to protect it. And so I'll send y'all that article because Tommy Waller with
Center for Security Policy.
Center for what?
Security Policy.
Security Policy. Thank you, Connie. Tommy Waller with Center for Security Policy. I got a hold of our bill and he actually liked it. He said, well, since you all did the work on the bill, why don't we go ahead and make a resolution now? I was fighting to keep it a bill. So anyway, it's going to be a resolution. And then we're going to go meet up with the 5 people from the committee to talk to them about, the intellectual property that our 3 engineers have to protect the grid. And what can we do to protect that grid? Because it's important and it needs to be done. And it's a lot easier than what they've made it out to be, according to the 3 engineers that have the intellectual property, that at one point the Pentagon had written to them and told them that they cannot use their property and nor can they sell their property to any foreign country. So we can't use their material here, and they're not allowed to sell the material anywhere else. So what does that say? The Pentagon was previously preventing our grid from being protected. That's what it says to me anyway. So now we're in a different temperature and we have Trump and we're making America great again and we're making America healthy again. And we called it, we're going to make America grid again. And so that's what we're doing, making America great again. And we're going to start here in Louisiana. So we recently put together with Tommy Waller a web page for Louisiana to protect the grid. And that's something that I will get that link out to you all, that website to you all. It's in the middle, it's in the process of being completed. Okay. And that's that on that. I want to go ahead and welcome the Louisiana State Treasurer, John Fleming. John Fleming was elected Louisiana State Treasurer on November 18th, 2023, and sworn in on January 8th, 2024. A physician, entrepreneur, businessman, and military veteran. He's also a former congressman from the 4th District of Louisiana. He served 4 terms in Congress from 2009 to 2017. While in Congress, he was one of the founders of the House Freedom Caucus. After leaving Congress, he was appointed to 3 different positions in the Trump administration. First, he served from 2017 to 2019 as Deputy Assistant Secretary at Health and Human Services. And then he was appointed and Senate confirmed in 2019 as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development. In 2020, he was detailed to the West Wing of the White House and served as the Deputy Chief of Staff to President Trump. Fleming grew up in a working class home. His father died while he was still in high school, leaving him with no breadwinner in the home, 2 younger siblings, and a disabled mother. Despite such hardships, John worked his way through college and was accepted into medical school. After his residency in family medicine, Dr. Fleming served as a naval medical officer. After leaving the military, he set up a medical practice in Minden, where he lives today. In addition, he started several companies managing commercial real estate as well as multi-unit franchise. These businesses continue to successfully operate today. John and his wife Cindy have been married for 46 years. They have 4 grown children and 5 grandchildren. Let's welcome Treasurer John Fleming. Louisiana State Treasurer John Fleming.
Okay, I'll move this over.
Yeah. Wait, let me go. You got it? Once it doesn't forward. Perfect.
I hate anything between me and the people, right?
Oh.
Is that okay with the camp? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for having me today, and I feel so blessed and privileged to be among like-minded people, people that think and really process information the way we do. And of course, Susie isn't she a phenomenon? Give her a round of applause. I mean, for her to track so many things in government is just amazing. And so I always watch my P's and Q's because I know Susan's watching. So what I like to do is, I know some of you don't know me, and I think it's important. You know, it's often said that the best predictor of the future is past history. And so I want you to know a little bit about me. You've heard my bio, but I'll kind of fill in some blanks here that I think are important, because if you're going to have a trusted leader, whether it's in the Treasury or in the U.S. Senate, you need to know something about me and my life experience, because that's something that you can trust. So I grew up in a working class home. You know, Kamala grew up in a middle class, but I grew up in a working class home. My dad was a lineman for the power company, and he worked hard. But look, we struggled. You know, we had to sit around the kitchen table and decide what bills could be paid this month, what we could put off. We didn't even use credit cards back in those days; they hardly existed. And so we have millions of families today that are doing the same thing, especially during the time of inflation under President Biden. So fast forward a little bit, I was heavily influenced, really loved, I was very close to my grandmother. She was an LPN nurse, and she used to regale me with stories of the hospital. She used to talk about doctors, and not always complimentary either. And but she would tell me about situations like having your own soap opera. You know, that's a HIPAA law violation today. You can't talk about those things. But back then, I was really fascinated by it. And I said, this is something that I think interests me a lot. But also, when I was age 11, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. I came in touch with knowing that I was lost, but I was redeemed through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I said, I want to dedicate my life and career to my fellow mankind. I wanted that to be my calling, and I wanted to work for people. So I decided to become a physician one day, and I worked very hard towards that. And just as I was leaving for college, my dad suddenly died of a heart attack at age 43. And so all my financing that I had in place, it was gone. And so I had to figure a way out. The good Lord came to my rescue. I found some loans that I could borrow, a few scholarships. I worked during the summertime to build up some cash, gig jobs. One of my gig jobs was I was a houseboy for a sorority. And in fact, it was Olivia Manning was one of the, she was, I think, the fiance or girlfriend, of course, of Archie Manning at the time. They ultimately married, and the rest is history. But anyway, it was a great job because I got 2 square meals a day, and little sororities have the best food on campus. Now, I didn't get paid, but I got to flirt as much as I wanted. So it was really a great job. But anyway, I made it through college, and I was accepted into medical school. But after the first semester of medical school, I ran out of money again. And it just happened that Congress had passed a law called the Health Profession Scholarship Program. The draft had ended, and they couldn't get doctors unless they, had some incentive for them. Well, I was the first one in the nation to volunteer. I got a physical the same day, and they inducted me into this program where the Navy would pay my way through medical school in exchange for service. Now, the truth is, I would have done it for free because I love the military. My dad was in World War II. My uncle served both in the Pacific and under Pat in Europe. And I so admire, and it still do, the men and women of the service. And so it was a great privilege for me, but I sure am glad they paid my way through medical school. So now the Navy will issue you a lot of things, but spouse is not one of them. So as a senior medical student, there was a cute brunette with a ponytail. She was a newly minted nurse, and she came up to me and she asked for my autograph. Well, at least that's my story. She says that she asked me to co-sign an order. Okay. We'll go with her story. Anyway, but I did grab her phone number. And 46 years later, we're still married with 4 children and 6 grandchildren. So, yeah, we have one that's 10 months old. In fact, 2 of our grandchildren we share with Laura and Alan Seabaugh. Y'all know Senator Seabaugh. Yeah, his eldest daughter married my third in line, my son. And they have 2 little girls. Cute little girls. In fact, that's where my wife is right now. She's taking care of them while they're on vacation. Anyway, so while I was in the Navy, I enjoyed the Navy. I delivered a lot of babies, especially on Guam. I was stationed on Guam. We were stationed on Guam for 2 years, and I even delivered babies during hurricanes. Unfortunately, they don't pay hazardous duty for that. But anyway, I enjoyed the whole term, 6 years that I spent as a Navy doctor. But I wanted to set up my own medical practice, so I looked for a little town somewhere. I wanted to go to a small town. And I found one in North Louisiana. And so I left the service and set up a private practice. It flourished right from the beginning. And I was real pleased with that. And it still operates today. I'm still board certified. In fact, I'm re-board certified. And right now, as we speak, it's a 3-year process, and it'll be over at the end of the year. And I like to tell folks when I'm out is if you happen to have an earache, stomach ache, or chest pain, I can accept most forms of payment. So anyway, but I do still practice medicine from time to time. Anyway, I became interested in entrepreneurship. I got the bug. I said, I want to know what it's like to own and operate a business. So I opened the first Subway restaurant in North Louisiana. And we have eventually built up to 32. And they still operate today. And if you want to get healthy, come to one of my restaurants. And, but also I got into another company called the UPS store that my territory stretched across Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. We've since sold that. But I had, 1 foot squarely in medicine and 1 foot squarely in business and still do. So some say I got off my medication. I don't know what happened. But I ended up running for U.S. Congress in 2008 and I got elected and I served for 8 years. But I can tell you, I became this was during the Obama years. I fought against Obamacare. Why? Because today, tell me, what do you think? Have your costs gone down? Your out-of-pocket expenses, your deductible, your premiums, have they gone down? Well, I predicted that back in 2010 when it passed, that there was not anything in the 3,000 pages that would lower the cost of health care. It would not make it more efficient. It would not create any market forces. Now we have, of course, Big Pharma charging you an arm and a leg for medications. Unless you get some kind of coupon, and I don't understand it. Why don't they just charge what it really costs? Why do we have to play these games? Coupons, PBMs, and all of this. Makes no sense at all. Anyway, we still need healthcare reform, and I do want to go back to Washington and work on that to lower costs and make healthcare more efficient. But where I became really discontent was in the leadership among Republicans. Too often, Speaker Boehner, who is a Republican, as you know, would cooperate way too much with Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama. And do y'all remember when Speaker Boehner would hug and kiss Speaker Pelosi?
Yes.
I wanted to throw up in my mouth.
I'm cringing right
Why
now.
would you do that? So anyway, so many of us would push back against this. Some of my colleagues, like Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Ron DeSantis, we really fought against this, but the leadership would go after us and they would try to call us out. They tried to redistrict me into a Democrat district. Republicans did this. We had one member that they tried to kick off of a committee. In another case, a guy was from a huge agricultural district and they kicked him off the agricultural committee and he lost his re-election as a result of that. So they were retaliating against us because we didn't go along with all of this stuff, agreeing with Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi on spending and on the Iran deal and all this kind of stuff. Well, we got fed up with it and we created an organization called the House Freedom Caucus in 2015. And I was one of the 9 founding members. It's still very active today. And they've done a lot of great work. But the point is, don't trust blindly anybody you send to Washington, okay? Whether it's me or anybody else. You check behind us and hold us accountable. Just because we're Republican does not mean that we're going to do the right thing. And that's what I firmly believe. So after my 8 years in Congress, I entered the Trump administration. President Trump appointed me as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. I served there 2 years in health, IT, computers and all that. And then he appointed me to head the Economic Development Administration. I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce for that. I had to go through Senate confirmation, and Chuck Schumer actually voted for me. So I'm sort of reflecting, what is it about me that would make Chuck Schumer want to vote for me? I don't know. Am I liberal or what? But anyway, he did, and I got passed through. So after doing that for a little while, they detailed me to the White House, the West Wing of the White House, where I served as Deputy Chief of Staff in the West Wing of the White House. And if you look at the layout in the West Wing, which is really small, if you've ever done a tour in the White House, you only see the East Wing. You don't see the West Wing. The East Wing is where all the ceremonial things are, the antiques, the large paintings, the china. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and majestic. In the West Wing, it's like a little house. We're all packed in together, and that's where the work goes on. And you rarely get to, unless somebody who's working there, you really can't see it. And I would bring in friends and family periodically when they allowed me to. But anyway, so the layout was my office was here. Mark Meadows, the chief of staff, was here. Jerry Kushner was right next to me. He's the shadow chief of staff. And then Vice President Pence was across the hallway. And then 10 steps down the hallway was the Oval Office. It's where President Trump sat for 11 months that I was there. It was such a huge privilege and an honor to be serving the nation with President Trump, and kind of got to know him. My wife and I were invited to Camp David for kind of an intimate gathering of certain members of Congress. It was fascinating. We got to have an intimate dinner with him, and totally charming, always in control, but would charm your socks off. Totally different than what you see in front of the camera. Not angry, but complimentary, charming, and a great guy to be around and have a beer with or whatever. I mean, it really was a lot of fun. I traveled on Air Force One a number of times. One time, someone said, you can call your friends and family if you like. It's not a secure line. So I did. I called my wife, but she wouldn't answer because she didn't recognize the number. So I had to text her to say, please answer the phone so that we could say, I called you from Air Force One. And the same thing happened with my kids, all four of them, same thing. So but anyway, I served on the coronavirus task force. You all know what notable figure was on this task force? Dr. Fauci. Yeah, now, Dr. Fauci was a legend in his own mind, and he was often wrong, but seldom in doubt. He loved microphones and TV cameras, and he shot from the hip. We came in one day, and this was early in the pandemic, and the question was asked, well, some say we should be wearing masks. And he said, absolutely not. They don't work. They do nothing for you. We said, okay. We came back a week later, and he said, I changed my mind. Instead of no mask, you should wear 2 masks. And that began the legend of Dr. Fauci. We now know that he was actually funding the research at the Wuhan lab that led to the lab leak that killed the first person who was a worker there. And the Chinese kept it secret and allowed people to travel all over the world. And that spread the pandemic. It killed over 7 million people around the world and over 1 million Americans. No one's paid a price for that. No one's answered for that at all, even Dr. Fauci. So I served I did other things. I was liaison for the 2020 census and other things while I was there. But after that was over, I came back to Louisiana and ran for treasurer. And I was spending your treasurer for a little over a year. Thank you very much for your vote.
Yes.
President Trump did endorse me for this, and I'm very pleased with that. So basically, the treasurer does 3 things. Number 1, invest your money wisely, your tax money. We got $450 million last year return on investment, so we're doing pretty good on that. We do it safely. We don't take risks. Number 2 is the unclaimed property division. Are you all familiar with unclaimed property?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's by far the most popular program in the entire government, of course, because I want to give you money back. I want you to have your money rather than I'm a reverse taxable department. And it's said that 1 in 6 Louisianans are owed money through unclaimed property. We have hundreds of millions of dollars sitting there ready to be returned to people. The legislature and the governor cannot touch it. Now, believe me, they would like to. By law, they can't. Right.
John Bell, Edwards, and Schroeder were going at each other. John Bell wanted that money in the general fund.
Absolutely, he did. And I'm so glad that he stood his ground. Because that's your money. It could be a bank account you forgot about. It could be an inheritance. It could be a tax refund that didn't make it to you There's many different ways. Now look, giving away money is very easy. Or so I thought. We had a gentleman we owed $20,000 and we called him and we couldn't get him on the phone, but we left messages and we said, sir, please call us. We have $20,000 to give you. And he would not call us back. Would you call back? You would think it's a scam, right? So did he. But we actually got him to come to a meeting just like this. And I showed him my treasurer's ID and I showed him the check and he accepted it. We have a photograph to prove it. So, and I've given away as much as $68,000 in checks.
Wow.
Yeah. We had one gentleman that was owed over $200,000 and we couldn't find him. Turned out he was homeless. And we finally found him, so he got the money. Now, he did pass away later, but still, thankfully, we got him that money. Maybe that was a bright spot in his declining life. So, so again, it's a very, very popular program. And again, there are people in this room that probably are owed money. And it's real easy to find out. Go to lacashclaim.org. And if you don't remember that, just Google this unclaimed property and you'll find it. lacashclaim.org. And put in a little bit of information about yourself and it'll pop up. You can claim it online. Now, we brought in some reforms there. We had a big backlog when I came into office. And what we found out was that the workers processing these were also the people answering the phones, trying to explain to people why they're too busy to process their claims. So what we did is we sent the phone work out, contracted that out. And so all the phone calls go to an organization that does this for states. That way the workers can process, and so the claims are way down. The backlog is way down. So we're bringing reforms every day. Now, a few other things. Well, I told you about two, and then the third one is I'm chairman of the bond commission as treasurer. What we do is we review all the debt that comes before us, like housing projects, like affordable housing, cities, states, parishes, I should say, want to bond. The bond, going to debt in some way, they have to come before us, and we have to approve that. And the reason is if they get over their head, if they get too far into debt, they can't carry the interest. Well, then what happens is they go into fiscal administration, and we have to run these for them. We have 3 cities right now in fiscal administration, so we're the backstop. State government is the backstop when these cities get in trouble. So those are the 3 main things. So what have we been doing in the last year? Well, number one, soon after I took office, I found out that Bank of America was kicking people off their accounts based on their political views. Yes, people who are Second Amendment folks who maybe trade and sell in firearms, people who are in the oil and gas industry, 2 Christian organizations who are doing great charity work in Africa. And for no other reason, they just simply kicked them off their accounts. And they had the gall to come to me and ask to be a fiscal agent for our commissions and committees in Louisiana. And I said, no way, guys, I'm not, you're going to discriminate against our citizens here. You expect me to give you government work? It ain't going to happen. So, and they're not the only bank. And it's not just in Louisiana. These are national banks that have been doing this. Now, we did learn later that they were being pressured by Biden regularly to do this. Even Melania was kicked off the bank account. So it was widespread. So we pushed back against that. They came to me a couple of months ago and said, okay, we changed our way. This is after Trump was elected. And we're not doing this anymore. And I said, that's fine. But we trust. Right? So we haven't done any business with them since. We're watching them. We'll see if they truly change. Then there was an attempt to take over ExxonMobil, and they have a big footprint here in Louisiana. There was an effort from the left-wing folks out of California and their pension folks there to use their money with their proxy votes to overtake and turn ExxonMobil into a green new energy type company. Windmills, do away with oil and gas, but go into windmills and all the other kind of crazy stuff they do. And a representative here came to me and asked me to lead the effort to fight it. And I got 28 states behind me. And we wrote letters, we wrote editorials, and we defeated them by 90%. So that's how I know that. And they provide $135 million a year tax revenue, and that doesn't count the thousands of jobs that we have in Louisiana. So we protect them. So you may recall that we divested about $1 billion from BlackRock because of ESG investments, which all the science behind that is that if you invest for any reason, environmental or whatever, for the purpose of social engineering, your return on investment is much less than it is for just regular investment. So we divested all of our money from BlackRock. That was good. So those are just some of the things that we've been battling over time. But here's what I'm really excited about that we just did. Y'all heard about the K through 12 school transparency website? You haven't heard? You guys don't watch TV.
No.
Okay, remember there was a law passed last year to create school choice, right? The Gator program. How do you choose a school if you don't know anything about the school? So there was another companion bill passed by Senator Rick Edmonds for transparency. And so we went live on March 31st after downloading or uploading all the data from all of the public and charter schools in the entire state. Okay? And it's on the website now. We did a media kickoff on April 2nd. And WDSU in New Orleans has done a big thing. They spent a lot of time on it. If you go to their website, you'll see. Now, what's important about this? Well, if you're going to choose the school that your child goes to, public or private or charter, you need to know something about the school. So what's being disclosed here? Everything. Contracts, payroll, what superintendents and principals are being paid. Who are the contracts with? School performance. Anything and everything you'd want to know. Now, have we uncovered some concerning things? Yes, we have. Dinners at Ruth's Chris at the state taxpayers' expense. Amanda's Palace. Uber Eats. Massages. Act Blue. Does anybody know what Act Blue is? Your tax money went to Act Blue, folks. So this has never been disclosed. This has all been, in a black box for forever until now. So you can go to our website. It's searchable. It's user friendly. And if you want to find it, just go to the Treasurer's website, treasury.la.gov, and there's a button there that takes you to K through 12. And so, but there's a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of media about it, and we need to hold government accountable, everybody, including Treasury, what is spent. So we're really excited about that. So that kind of brings me up to date with what we're doing in Treasury. So here's what I'd like to talk about for a moment before I open up for questions. 5 months ago, I announced that I'm running against Senator Bill Cassidy for the United States Senate. Now, to be honest with you, I knew Louisiana was unhappy with him primarily because he voted to convict Trump in the second impeachment trial. Now, don't let people tell you that he voted to impeach Trump. He did not vote to impeach him. He voted to convict him.
Yes.
And what is the difference? Impeachment is in the House. The impeachment is nothing more than an indictment. It's an accusation. The Senate is the one who has a trial. They review the evidence, and they conclude whether or not a crime has been treated. In fact, a high crimes and misdemeanor is what the Constitution says. So when Bill Cassidy was asked, why did you vote to convict Trump? His answer was, because he's guilty. Now, what is he guilty of? What is President Trump guilty of? What is the evidence that he's guilty of anything? This was all about January 6th, as we know. What did we recently learn? There were 26 contract FBI agents among this crowd. We know this now. We verified this. They went in the Capitol with everybody else. So they were encouraging this behavior. What happened 3 days before January 6th, January 3rd? President Trump, being concerned, met with Nancy Pelosi, Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C., and General Milley, who was head of Joint Chiefs of Staff. And he said to them, we need 10,000 National Guard troops. And he said, but I can't do it myself. You have to request it. That's the law. And they refused. They said it's bad optics. I think that they all knew it was going to be a bad day. And I truly believe that this was a setup for President Trump. I think they really encouraged this. The blood is on their hands, not on Donald Trump's hands. I think so. She's a mastermind of most everything that Democrats do, even today. So ultimately, he was guilty of nothing. And of course, he was sued and indicted many times for many reasons all across the country. And we know that not anything is stuck. The only thing that he's been convicted of was overvaluing Mar-a-Lago, which they said, I don't know, that it's worth like $7 million. Are you kidding me? It's got 2 beachfronts and it's a huge house. The whole thing is bogus, folks. The whole thing was intended to prevent him from running again. And that's ultimately, in my view, was the bad decision that Bill Cassidy made, is it wasn't about taking Trump out of office. It was about preventing him from running again. And had they been successful, today we would have Biden or Kamala Harris as our president. So to me, that is a very, very serious mistake on his part. But since I've been running, people have been telling me a lot of other things. They say that Cassidy has been disconnected from Louisiana. That he doesn't think like people in Louisiana. He doesn't. He's not from Illinois. Yes. Exactly. And so I just think that he grew. Remember, he was a Democrat before he changed Republican to run for office.
Right.
So I think his heart's always been in the Democrat philosophy of things. And I think he grew so comfortable, especially after Trump endorsed him for election, that he felt like that he was going to dance on the political grave of Donald Trump. And I think that was a big mistake and a big failure. So things have been going very well. I have a fundraiser I'm doing in both the cities next Thursday. We already have 80 people confirmed, and we may have a crowd twice that size before it's all over. It's a fundraiser. These people bring in their checks. The polls, there are 3 polls out there on this race. All of them show I lead him on the election. So we're doing very well in every respect. And but it'll be a tough election. But remember, this is going to be a close primary. The election is next April. It's a year from now. And I'll take the question in just a moment. I'm almost done. So a year from now, that will be the close primary, Republican against Republican. And then the general election will be the following November, Democrat versus Republican. So that's kind of the situation as it is. And I'm very grateful for your invitation here today, and I'll be happy to answer questions. And yes, ma'am, go ahead. Yours.
Onyx. Where do you take the long
Sure. Great question. Hold on. Come on. Sir? I can't miss out on this.
No.
Uh, So the question is, what about tariffs? Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? Well, let me explain what's going on. Let me give you a little depth to really historical piece of this and why all of this is important today. Remember that after World War II, we were the only true Western power left standing. And Eastern powers too. China was decimated. Japan was decimated. All of Europe was decimated. Certainly, Russia was depleting, and we were left standing in really good shape. And we came up with the Marshall Plan to help them out in Europe. And of course, Germany was decimated. And so the idea was that we would give advantages to our trading partners in order to help them lift up and build their economies. Y'all remember, if you're older enough, some of you I think are old enough to remember this. Y'all remember the first imports from Japan? Remember those little baskets we used to get? Made, and say made in Japan? That was their imports. We used to laugh at it. But when they started shipping cars to us, we stopped laughing. Because they really produced a lot of good products and still do today. And but we have helped these folks. However, we got to the 90s and we made it worse. We doubled down with NAFTA and all these other agreements. And so what manufacturing we had left in America is gone. And we used to blame it on labor costs, but that really wasn't the problem. Especially isn't a problem now because we're so automated and mechanized. We can make things just as fast and easy and cost effectively as any country in the world, probably more.
Yeah.
So what Trump is saying is, look, we have free trade, but we don't have fair trade. Everybody is tariffing our products, and so we have no manufacturing now.
Right.
Most of our automotive manufacturing is gone. Steel, we hardly make any steel. We've lost our industrial base.
Yes.
And if we get into a conflict, what are we going to do?
Right.
We're going to call our enemy and take shipments, take orders, right? You can't do that. And remember, a lot of these things we created, like chips. China and Taiwan need us in chips. We actually invented that technology and started that manufacturing. So it's time to bring it back home, bring our companies and jobs back home. And so what Trump has stepped out to do is say, look, whatever you tariffed us, we're not going to match you. We're going to go 50%. We're going to tariff you half of what you're tariffing us. We're not going to go below 10%. And basically, they're coming, kissing Trump's ring and saying, okay, we're ready to deal. He wants reciprocal trade. Okay? That means that we tariff the same as they do. And whatever they want to tariff, we'll tariff the same. And that's true balanced trade. And so that means we're competitive around the world. Isn't that America first?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that's about? Right. It's
The problem though with is we have mostly unions that are government, but we also have private unions.
Yeah.
And those are what's killing our manufacturing products.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Her statement is that unions have always been a big problem. And I will say the silver lining to losing a lot of the automotive industry was the fact that it did weaken the unions and the grip that they held over management. And certainly they'll come back stronger as we bring it in. But I do think that our country has learned some lessons on that, and I think maybe the regulations will be set, hopefully, that we won't allow them to gain the kind of control that they've had in the past.
Was that you didn't fire their cars.
Absolutely true.
Now our some cars.
Like, yeah, we had a General Motors plant in Shreveport when I first started my practice in the 1980s. We had people from General Motors. They lived in Minden, but they worked over in Shreveport. And I remember distinctly, there were several examples, but one that I remember distinctly one guy was an alcoholic, and he would take off just about every day from work to come see us about his headaches and backaches and all that. And he was fully paid while he would come to our office and we would treat him, but he always had a reason not to work. Well, when you have that kind of inefficiency, even if he was on the line, he probably didn't do a very good job. But today, that would be a robot anyway. Now, some might say, well, are we killing jobs? I would say no, because whoever has stronger efficiency in our business and in our manufacturing, when has that ever really hurt jobs in the long run? What it does is it improves, it elevates the jobs. So instead of somebody, ending up with a frozen shoulder because they're doing this all day on the assembly line, they're sitting in front of a computer managing the robots who are doing all that work. And so it's not nearly as taxing on the body, and your career can last a lot longer. You do. But again, that means more and more productivity over time. And productivity has always been our friend. In fact, I would say to you that being able to help people who no longer work, retirees and people who are disabled, we can only do that because we have such productivity in this country that we can actually help take care of other people who are not working at all. The problem we have is there are a lot of people who are able-bodied who choose not to work, and the government gives them no longer a safety net, but a hammock. And we saw that truly during the pandemic, where they're having their student loans canceled. They were getting all sorts of benefits, stimulus checks. And I can tell you, as an employer, it's very difficult hiring people during that period. It still is, because there's so many opportunities to live off so many programs now that's funded by you, the taxpayers. So these are things that we really have got to get our country back to work. And I believe that Donald Trump will make that happen. Yes, ma'am.
Local. Identity. It's precious because all this little things, things like that. But especially during the pandemic, I really felt like we needed a warrior
Sure.
from Louisiana representing us. And, so I'm assuming that that's going to be you, which would be great.
Well, yeah, thank you. And that's what I plan to do. Look, I don't need to go to Washington to make more money or become wealthy. I have no interest in that. I've done fine through my life. And, I've had businesses in my medical practice. And I have no ambition to be an elevated politician in some way, like president or anything like that. I have no interest in that. I'm willing to take the risk because, to me, there's no real risk to it. What do I have to lose? Well, if I do the right thing, you're going to reelect me, right? You're the people I'm accountable to, and you're the people I answer to. Now, it's true that my leadership may pass over me to be a chairman of a committee or whatever. But again, you have to decide. Do you want somebody who's promoting and elevating himself for his own good? Or do you want somebody who's willing to take the risk, be courageous, and sometimes do the thing that leadership in Washington is not happy with? Which do you want? You have to decide for yourself. And for me, I think it's important that I take care of you, I respond to you, I listen to you, and reflect your values and your culture. That's far more important than any promotion that I could get. Yes, ma'am.
Well, our values as Republicans are Republican platform values.
Yes.
And so we saw that Cassidy voted left a lot of times. And I recall specifically when he was on Laura Ingraham, sort of laying out the platform for his green passports, which I thought was unbelievable that he would even go there. Because I remember the interview where she said, well, you do know that the people aren't going to like that. And I was watching, right, and he went right ahead with it,
Right.
even though we didn't like that.
Well, again, I'm getting a lot of this feedback that I wasn't even necessarily aware of, but it sounds like tone deaf, you know?
He's
Like-
never available for the conservative Republicans to speak to. He wouldn't hear our voice and did exactly the opposite of what he was voted in for. And so with you, I believe that, you will be somebody that's approachable, somebody that'll speak to the people, somebody that you can be reached, and you'll listen.
Well, to give you an example, I spoke to the late Charles Republican women a month ago, and they said that right after that vote for Big Trump, he came to them to explain his vote. He truly expected that they could accept his explanation.
Right.
And they were rolling their eyes and couldn't believe it. And so there's a sense of not only tone deafness, but that he was talking down to you. He's telling you, look, I'm smarter than you are. If you'll just trust me, then we'll come out the right way. And look, folks, I gave up a long time ago, if I even had this thought, I'm not sure I ever did, that government can solve your problem.
Right.
When is the government ever solve your problems except to get out of the way?
Yeah.
I just can't think of any program that's truly, even Social Security, while it is in a way a government program, it's a retirement program. And even if it were private, it still would do the same thing. Yes.
My income is not much. I'm supposed to pay whether I'm old. Whatever. Yeah, people are making less. Well, it should be an abomination. Income below poverty. Both men. But it's $30 over 1,000 months. $1,000 months. You would have homelessness. Not live in place for anything.
So, right. What you're talking about is people on fixed income. And who suffers the most from inflation? People on fixed incomes, because your income, despite the COLA rates they give you, will never keep up with inflation. So you have Biden, who's wasting money on crazy stuff that was causing inflation. On illegals, yes, getting them 5-star hotels. 5-star hotels for illegals. And all that was inflationary, driving up your day-to-day costs, your rent, your food. And you're on a fixed income. So, right. Yeah, exactly. And so why are we busting the bank for illegals, many of them criminals, when our own citizens can't even pay their rent? Makes no sense at all. That's certainly not First Americans.
But people not taught. That's what it needs to go.
Sure. Okay. Is there any, Ms. Smith?
I have to talk a little bit, any Trump crowd. Why is he pressuring Jerome Powell to lower interest rates? Because that is going to raise inflation.
So the question is, why is Trump pressuring Jerome Powell to lower interest rates? There are two reasons for that. One is that reduces the interest on our debt. As a nation, we pay more debt than anybody. So that would help out with our budget. You see, they're trying to pass this budget reconciliation bill. And that would help them out on projecting future costs through the CBO. The second reason is that it would probably spark the economy to just take off. Right. So again, it's a dilemma. It really is. The question is, remember that he cut interest rates too late. It was too late. I'm sorry, raising interest rates. Remember, exactly. And so, he got a lot of criticism, and I think that he's trying to avoid the same criticism by going down too quickly. Well, absolutely. So, do I know when the right time is to lower interest rates? No, because nobody truly knows. It's really just looking at the data, a lot of guesswork. And so, is it the right time? I don't know. They are projecting that probably next year there will be a number of rate cuts. So, I don't know. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Sure. But that, all I could do is just tell you the dynamics of what's going on. I can't tell you one person's right or wrong. It's just, again, there is no right or wrong. Oftentimes, it's just really doing the best you can to get the numbers right.
So do you know anything about the Louisiana Doge and that committee that was put together?
Right.
And will we be able to have transparency and to see like Doge, like Elon Musk Doge? And will those people that use our tax dollars to fund these NGOs to traffic children and to do nefarious things, will those people be held accountable for their crimes with our tax dollars?
Well, let me tell you what I know about Louisiana Doge. So, the governor issued a proclamation, executive order, I guess, to create Louisiana Doge. And I called him up and I said, Governor, each year, including the treasury, because
Absolutely.
spending,
Yeah.
spending. And where did those begin
At the Treasury
at the
Department.
Treasury Department? So I said, "Each year do that." You saw the announcement. We had a picture, I think, of some senators, some House members, and they talked about creating the Doge. Well, a month or two has gone by, and I had not heard a word. A word. So I went on a podcast, and I said, they asked me the same question. I said, I had not heard, the word I used was utterance. I had not heard utterance. I don't know who these people are. I don't even know what they said. Is this a political thing? Maybe it's all just political, or do they really need to do something? Well, I got a call almost immediately. I don't know, 3 people. They were appointed by the governor. One is Steve Orlando, I think it's his name. Charles. And then there was, I forget the last name. What is it? Hayden, I think is the first name, but I'm not sure. So anyway, they called me and they said, "Have your feelings hurt?" And I kind of, like I should have reached out to them.
What?
I didn't know they existed. They know I exist.
Right.
Somebody's in this job.
Yeah.
And so, and they said, well, what can you help us with? Is there something that you can work us? And I said, I have a whole list of things.
Wow.
Okay. And so, my staff and I met, and we went down the list of about 4 things. And I'll just tell you one of them. I'll tell you more, but I'm going to start with that. I said, we had a problem back in December with the Louisiana Department of Health. It wasn't really so much anything they were doing wrong deliberately, but when the Medicaid money comes in, like $1.5 billion, it comes in and then they release money to go out to the hospitals and the doctors. But sometimes they're delayed. They delay by 24 hours. The money has gone out, but it hasn't come back from CMS. And in December, early December, that happened. We had millions and millions of dollars of checks that were going to bounce. And they called me up. How would you like to get the same call I did? Mr. Treasurer, it's like 8 a.m. We're $1.5 billion overdrawn in the bank account. Go. Hello? Am I dreaming? Is this a nightmare? What are you talking about? How could you be overdrawn? And what they said was that the money from CMS, because of some, that they have to fill out a little form or application. They didn't quite do it right, LDA, and therefore it was hung up. And so the checks had already gone out, but the money hadn't come in. And We got with the bank, it's, the Chase, bank up in New York. And we talked to them and they covered it all. It did cost us about $35,000, but it could have been at $30 a check. It could have been millions of dollars.
Wow.
So I said, look, I didn't even know this was possible. How is it possible that someone can draw $1 billion out of your bank account? You can't stop it from doing it. I said, that should have never been. So we met, and then we called in LBH. We met with them, and we said, look, we have got to change this, or you can never draw the money until we receive it from Washington. Okay? That's just the thing. It's crazy to do otherwise. And it took months, but we finally got an agreement, MOU. But it had been signed by them. And what we had to do to avoid this from happening, we had to keep the bank account instead of around 700,000, we had to keep it at 1.5 billion. Now that's cash, that short-term interest rates, which are low. It was costing us $43,000 a day, $16 million a year. And all we needed was LDH to sign the memo. And so I told them this. I said, anything you can do to help, because we can't bring that balance down. Risk getting into trouble like that. Can you imagine what the newspapers would say if we had all these bounce checks? And within 24 hours, it was signed. So we brought the balance down. And now we're gaining more interest on the money that otherwise was sitting there doing nothing. But that's just one example. So, we talked about a lot of different things. The other thing that I talked with them about, and Senator Cloud is working on this. So when money is appropriated from Baton Rouge and it goes to government or non-government, there has to be a contract signed. It's called a cooperative endeavor agreement, whether it's a governmental or non-governmental organization. And there's certain accountabilities. For instance, if it's an ongoing certain amount of money for operations, we only give half the money up front by the agreement. And then when they give us the receipts for the first half, we give them the second half. And I can tell you a lot of these entities don't want that, and neither do the senators or representatives. They just want us to cut them a check and get about it. And we go, we're not going to do that. That's against procurement rules, and it's unethical, and we're going to end up with a lot of bad debt if we do that. Now, the question you have to ask yourself, what is a non-governmental organization? A non-governmental organization is a private organization that's created by people, citizens, to do something that the government is in effect doing through them. And the question is, do we need that service? And number two, who's accounting for that? Are they doing the right thing? And is there any real benefit for what they're doing? We have no mechanism to measure these things. None. There was one case where there was believe it or not, a church that was allocated $300,000 by the legislature for a food bank. And the way it's set up is the $100,000 is for the food and $50,000 for payroll. They came back to us recently and said, we want to flip that. We want $100,000 for payroll and $50,000 for the food. Really? So you see, and of course we told them no. But the problem is, are these organizations doing what they're supposed to do? And are we really just creating a fake payroll?
Yeah.
I agree, and Washington says that too. I think Trump believes that as well. So I talked to Senator Cloud about this, and she's working on a bill that would make far more transparent the appropriations process than what it is today. Because I can tell you that when they pass these appropriations, all we get is who's going to get the money, and it's very vague about why they're getting the money. We do not know who the legislator is to put that money into the bill. The only way we find out is when we don't pay them, and then we get a call from the legislature. But they don't want the public to know they put that money in there. And I worry if maybe in some cases they're getting part of it. See, we have no way of knowing for certain that money is not being transferred. So I see that as an area of real savings potential and where there's a lot of weight. Even if it's going to the right thing for the right reason, do we really need that service? You know, if anything, we're not an undernourished nation. We're undernourished. We're hypernourished. And while there may be some people who, of course, have food needs, we have many programs out there that meet those things. So why do we need to have NGOs to do this? That's very duplicative and potentially big waste of money. So I talked to them about that, and they're going to work with Senator Cloud to try to get this legislation approved. I think we could save a lot of money in the appropriation process. So those are just two things. There were a couple of others I'm forgetting some of right now. So far, so good. But honestly, I had no clue who they were. And I don't know if any legislators are doing anything with this or not. We just have to see over time.
Well, Senator Valerie Hodges is one of those people on that committee. And
Okay.
so she's pretty available to us.
Okay,
We
good.
could reach out to her at any time, but there is no, like, where do you go to,
Yeah,
find them, meet them, talk to them, where's their headquarters,
Yeah.
where's their website, where's anything, there is nothing. And that's a problem.
What we want to do
There's
is
no
the Treasury
transparency.
website
Yeah,
is you've got the button that goes to the transparency on schools.
right. Can we have one for Doge?
Well, here's what we're
Louisiana?
going to do. Then we want one for appropriations.
Yeah.
We're going to call it Treasury Office of Government. Yeah. Code.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
we'll have some more.
Yeah.
We find others that we can.
We need Doge, Louisiana
Exactly.
Doge on there. We really do. We need to work on
So
that.
that's kind of the preliminary. Thing.
Thank you. And anyone else? Any questions? We're good?
Any other questions?
No? One more, this last one.
And this is a medical question. It's a doctor. My dad was a doctor.
You got the credit card?
And this is like what's going on with doctors don't think outside the box anymore. They go nuts.
Yeah.
Can't get a doctor like my doctor. I had COVID the first week of the lockdown. He still wants me to get the vaccine.
Right.
I told him that. And now they have a code that they put in there if you don't want to get the vaccine. So they mark you.
Well, part of this, I'm sure, is, and again, I was in health IT for 2 years. And when a doctor sees you under their program, under the rules of the CMS, there are certain requirements that they have to ask you before they get deemed on their reimbursement. So it could be that they have to ask you that question and they may get paid less if they don't.
Why do they have it? Why are they subject to
Right.
a higher up authority that tells them to tell their patient?
Well, again, whoever has the checkbook makes the
We
decision.
always hear about the doctor-patient relationship.
Absolutely.
There is none.
Doctors do not have close to the autonomy they had when I started practice. Look at getting prior authorization on medication, on surgery. There's some that are automatically unauthorized, but you have to beg them. I mean, it's a policy for a lot of these insurance companies that, if you need it, I'm just using this as an example. I don't know if it's true, but I'm just giving you an example. Oh, you need a hip replacement? I'm sorry, you're not eligible. But then they'll eventually give it to you. You just have to go through a lot of paperwork. And I believe that this is a strategy by insurance companies. The more they delay you, the more you choose to do something else. And you end up in a nursing home. And of course, in Europe and in Canada, one of the options, because getting a hip replacement can take as much as 10 years. One of the options they offer you is hospice and euthanasia.
Oh, my.
And in Canada, the fifth largest cause of death is
Right. So, anyway, I want to go back to Washington and work and make things free in terms of choice, free choice. And stuff. But ultimately, when it comes to vaccines, surgery, medication, no mandate. I don't think you should be forced to do anything that you don't want to do. That's between you and your doctor. Whether you take the vaccine or not, let's do away with all the mandates.
To me, that's a HIPAA violation.
Thank you all very much. You're so lovely. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. John Fleming for Senate. Skippo Cassidy. John Fleming for Senate. Skippo Cassidy out there. You will represent we the people. Yes. So, real quick, we have MAGA Louisiana.org. Have y'all seen this yet? MAGA Louisiana.org. Everyone should have one on their
He's
table.
carrying all that.
Harry Bourgeois and Martha Huckabay made the paper. Women's Republican Club of New Orleans made the paper. LibertyorLockdown made the paper. So what they did here is they took all the MAGA groups throughout Louisiana, all the way up to the tip top, down to the bottom of the boot, and we formed this group here. So we have a coalition of MAGA people, Make America Great Again, Make Louisiana Great Again. Because there's a lot of people that are Republicans that are for Trump. And they're doing the various things against our will. And so we're going to hold their feet to the fire. And that's what this is about. So we do have a stack of them over here. If you'd like, please grab 3 or 4 of them and hand them out to your friends in your neighborhood or your workplace. We would greatly appreciate it. This is to get the word out about this. And then go to MAGALouisiana.org and take a look at what we have in there. Jeff Pruitt is being the leader of all this and helping us put it together. But it's wonderful to have all the groups come together and have a voice. More power in numbers, correct? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, he's over there. Okay. What are you saying? You have 1,000-yard signs? Yes, they can hear.
So we're putting out yard signs. We have over 1,000 out there. So anybody who is willing to take 25 or more to distribute among friends and neighbors, if you will write your name and phone number, that's all I need, on a piece of paper, and I'll take it back and my staff will call you and get all the specifics. But again, 25 or more, we can't send out onesies and twosies unless we have somebody centrally, who can take them and distribute. In the club, somebody in the club here will take them and then give them out among members. We can do that. So one thing
Here's the list.
I don't have any bumper stickers right now.
Right. Now, nobody was on my phone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You don't see bumper stickers much anymore. Do people really want to use?
Like I said, no one sees my yard.
Okay, well, we'll start on.
we have a list going around. Please put your name on that list for a yard sign. What do you want, their email or phone number or phone number and name?
Yeah, 425.
Okay, well, I'll put my name on there for the pack of 25. Okay,
What's important 25?
yeah. You can use my side yard for your area to put your signs in. You can put my address down there and I'll be the person to help you out in Metairie, okay? Absolutely. Yes, Team Fleming. For bringing you to the Senate, sir. All right, and then we have the minutes of the meeting, Linda Wymanson.
So we're going to vote on the minutes that I lovingly prepared for this club. You bet. And now, I have a little synopsis of what we went through last meeting. But if you really want to see, if you weren't able to be here, it was a really interesting meeting and very informative about our power grid and also about Jake Lang, a January 6er. Can we get, I hear somebody talking, please be quiet. Thank you. Thank you. Let's be respectful. I have the websites that you can go to view those videos on. I have the one with Jake and also with Wayne LeGrand. Very interesting. So if you missed that, you really should go and watch that. And then as an aside, I put down all of the bills right now in the health area that have passed through committee. And I think Susie mentioned a lot of them, but I mean, taking fluoridation out of the water, ivermectin, and that kind of it was a little confusing to me because they said, "Oh, allowing pharmacies to dispense ivermectin." Well, they already do as a prescription, but this is to make it non-prescription.
Oh, so you can.
Yeah, so you can. It's over the counter. Yeah, and also prohibiting chemical weather modifications.
That's a good one.
And this admits that they're actually doing it because they want to try and stop it. Because they'll tell you, "Oh no, we're not doing that." And also chemicals and processed foods being removed from the public schools. That is so important because not only are we dumbing down our students, but we're poisoning their food. And okay, so and then the other one is adding doula services to Medicaid. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't really care about it. Some people do. And so that's basically what we had for last month. And if we can approve them.
Approve the minutes.
Okay, anybody seconding? Okay, you got 2 seconds. All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
$5. We put that inside therapists and.
No, I just said that was in the. I did. Look, all of those bills are just an aside from the minutes from last month. I thought it would be something that y'all would like to know.
Okay, so these bills that she just mentioned, they're not from minutes from last month, but they will be on the minutes next month.
Yeah, but I just wanted to let people know
No, it's
something
good idea.
current,
Perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just want to make it clear. All right, thank you.
Wednesdays, I'm gonna get with you. The people who want one